Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello and welcome back to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters, and today it is my 22nd episode, and let me tell you how much of a joy it's been to use this medium to come across to you and talk about things that are happening in the world today. So, I've shared some of my own thought processes and my experiences dealing with a lot of stuff that is happening and that's impacting a lot of people across the globe, and bringing my guests on who sharing their own stories might inspire something within yourself, might inspire you to make a change, might inspire you to bigger greatness, and just showing you that you're not alone. I mean, we've covered topics from human trafficking to breath work to slowing down to honoring the feminine within ourselves, and to be nice to other women, frenemies, and, don't be women enemies, right? Because we're all in this together. And I am committed to keep bringing you topics or subjects and people that are going to keep showing you how you can live an extraordinary life in yourself and how you can impact others to do the same. I am not afraid to attack controversial subjects because I think a lot needs to be talked about nowadays. And it's so important to really stand in what you believe in while also having empathy for what others might be going through themselves. So today's episode, we're going to talk about women in the workplace, right? Because, a lot of work is corporate. It's very masculine, and a lot of women try to lead, from a man's perspective, from a man's world, and we're feminine. And when we learn to embrace our feminine nature, we return back to ourselves, our authenticity, and we can lead and inspire others from there. Qualities traditionally considered feminine, such as empathy, collaboration, and intuition, have long gone unrecognized in traditional workplace culture as compared to qualities considered masculine, such as being direct. Instead of suppressing your feminine qualities because society may view them as less valuable, try tapping into those qualities personally and professionally as a source of power. It's a power that comes from being more connected to your authentic self. Women shouldn't hide these human traits at work, but give themselves permission to let them shine and make it the new leadership norm. Now, femininity is going to be different for everyone, and defining femininity for yourself is an individual path. It's time to own your feminine strengths at work, whatever that might look like for you. For me, femininity is about having strength that I define as grace with grit. Sarah Jessica Parker was right when she said trying to be a man is a waste of a woman. So there's plenty of room to bring our strengths to the table. Own your strengths and don't be afraid to bring your feminine side to the business world. In today's pod, Nancy Michieli shares with us how to do just that. Having worked in the oil and gas industry for 25 years, Nancy noticed that having fun and being flirty in the workplace was frowned upon. Yet her success all came from using her feminine energy while laughing and smiling, motivating her teams to achieve greatness, allowing her to lead with ease, creating corporate savings as great as $10 million in 1 year. Nancy is on a mission to break down masculine stereotypes that hard work and discipline are the only way to succeed in business and life. She helps women reclaim their feminine nature so they have the freedom to be fun, flirty, and fabulous, creating the life that they desire. Nancy Michieli's new program, Love to Be Me, inspires women to be more fun, flirty, and fabulous in life and business. So without further ado, here's this week's guest, Nancy Michieli. Nancy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nancy. It's great to be here. It's kind of awesome to be interviewed by someone with the same first name.
Exactly. Nancy Fancy Pantsies. Are
Yeah.
you fancy pants?
I do that for my niece. I would buy her the book. There's like a Fancy Nancy book and stuff to that effect. So,
Oh,
mhm.
yes. My friend sent me the video when it comes. She's like, no, there's Fancy Nancy. It's my daughter's dancing around the room screaming, Fancy Nancy, Fancy Nancy Pants. So anyway, it was so good to have you here coming from the East Coast, Canada.
Yes.
And I'm all the way in Portland. And it's the day after Thanksgiving. We stuffed ourselves here. Do you celebrate anything in Canada?
We don't. So our Thanksgiving is earlier in October, so we just get to watch from across the bridge.
Yeah. So you raise a glass and toast to your bordering country.
Exactly.
Yay, raise a
Exactly. And
glass.
all the people that I miss who I can't go see over there. So.
I know. How is it over there? Are they restricting people coming over? Well, we can't go over there, right? Or
Yeah, so essentially, you can fly into the US, but the bridges are all pretty much shut down. And I would go to Detroit and wine taste actually in Ann Arbor every 2 weeks,
oh
and I
wow.
don't get to do that. So I'm missing that group of people. They were so much fun
Wow,
to.
I can't imagine that because, as I just mentioned before we went live, is that I grew up in Michigan, so Canada and Windsor was just across the river, and not to be able to go through the tunnels because when I was 19 years old, you were allowed to drink at 19 over there, so everyone would go
Exactly.
over to Canada, over to Canada. And actually, I went over once with my boyfriend, who was 5 years older. He was 21, I was 16, and we got stopped at the border. He made us turn around, like he made my boyfriend come out of the car and like kind of grilled
Oh
him
no.
and like, you need to turn around and go back. Like we're so embarrassed. So anyway, hopefully everything will be opened up soon and we'll be kind of back to a normal semblance, hopefully. So
Yes, that would be lovely.
yes, lovely. All right. So I am so excited to have you on because I love your story and everything that you're doing to help women in the workplace to own their femininity and not have to become men in a, masculine corporate world or a world like you worked in, like that's very dominated by men, like the oil and gas industry and for years. And I love that you're owning your femininity and you're teaching other women to do the same. So, being in this kind of industry, what led you to like, hey, you know what, I'm going to own myself and be fun and flirty and still hold my power? Like, what led you to that?
So it's kind of an interesting story, and I think it's very different. But when I talk to other women, I do hear similarities. So I was in a position where I had approximately 1,000 men working for me. And my natural, fun, flirty self was out all the time. And I really enjoyed it. And it was easy to get cooperation and activities. And we were doing really, really well as a team. But I received some really, really negative, harsh feedback from somebody who was a woman in the organization and who had a significant role in the organization about this behavior being absolutely unacceptable. And I, being someone who loves to learn, took that feedback personally, took it really, really personally, and was like, okay, if I can't be that fun, flirty, natural, friendly person who I am, then if I'm going to work in the corporate world, I need to become more of kind of that closed and what I would actually call negative or wounded masculine energy. So not positive masculine energy, but I took on wounded masculine energy, which are things like being more controlling in the expectations that I would deliver to people, being more critical and harsh in the ways that I behave. So I became like the exact opposite of who I was. And I dominated the expectations of getting things done. And the people who worked for me went from, I used to have people who loved working for me to people who really hated and that working for me. And I was just like, okay, what is it? If I can't be fun and flirty, I'm going to get criticism for that. And if I become more dominating, controlling, and what in my head was the way men would drive things, I then was like, okay, it didn't work either. And so I was really, really stuck. So I hired myself a coach, and he was like, the feedback that you received was incorrect. And that is related to the self-esteem of that person giving you that feedback. And so he helped me overcome this negative image that I had in my head that being fun and flirty in the workplace was inappropriate. And he helped me re-engage with that. He helped me find that style and that person who is back in me. And now, as I look at women in the workplace, especially in the masculine workplace, we have this tendency to want to be too masculine and drive from what we think are the masculine strengths, which actually are the negative masculine strengths, as opposed to driving from this concept of feminine energy, such as creativity, intuition, and falling in love with who we are as women and what we bring to the table with that natural feminine charm.
Yeah, because a lot of people would see being fun and flirty as negative, or you're using your sexuality. And it's not about necessarily like being sexual. It's just being, women are about flow and ease and grace and like allowing things and openness. And how do you differentiate that? How do you do it without coming across overly sexual or overly flirtatious? Like you can be flirty and fun without like, hey, she's hitting on me, or hey, she wants to take me home, or like there's a line that like people are afraid to cross a lot of times.
So there is a fine line, but if you look at the definition of flirty, it is to create that funness and that playfulness without sexual intent. That is the true definition of flirty. So we, for some reason, have started to take the concept of flirty to being something with sexual intent. But the reality is it isn't, according to Webster's dictionary, it is without intent of that sexual being. So it's sometimes in relation to the language, right? You can compliment someone for their hair, for their clothing, for the way they dress without it being about being sexual, right? The reality is trying to create playful banter with the other person is really what you're trying to do. And you do that in a way that helps uplift that person that you're with, helps them make them feel good about themselves, helps them boost their spirit and their energy. So it could be just as simple as things as smiling. It could be that knowing wink. So as opposed to like winking like you're trying to get their attention, but that kind of just knowing that, okay, especially if you see them in conversations with a couple people and somebody's giving them advice that you're both not aligned with, you can give that kind of little knowing wink to say, okay, I'm with you on this page. And it's not about like a sexual thing. It's just about, okay, I'm here supporting you. I'm here creating an openness and a space. And one of the things that I do, and that I do in especially male dominant corporations, is give the men opportunity to teach. Give them that sense that they can share their knowledge, and that I'm not going to create this, oh, because I'm a woman, therefore I'm, you don't understand what I'm saying. I try and open up and just really, really listen and allow, sometimes men just need to be men, right? They buy them around a beer instead of expecting them to live to what we as women think they should live at. They are men. We are women. Allow us both to have that just natural thing about who we are.
And you can allow them to be men and feel helpful and be the hero and be in their power by, not knowing it all, or still being open and flirty and fun, and allowing them to, still be in their masculinity that way, right?
Yes. Yeah. And when you allow them to be in their masculinity, and one of the things that I have seen is that sometimes men get nervous about being in their masculinity because they're unsure how we are going to react. So if we can learn to react with openness, to react in a way of trying to be intuitive, trying to surrender and allow, using those different feminine energies and being curious, then they will open up and be more relaxed around us, and they'll be able to perform better. And what I have experienced is that when I allow men around me to perform in that safe zone, they then support me and elevate me in my career.
What a lot of women probably mistakenly do is they're thinking what they actually end up doing as a leader, because you're managing 1,000 people, right? You've
Yes.
managed 1,000-person team, men mainly.
Mainly men, yes.
Yes, is I know it all, follow me, like really stern, like we end up emasculating the men that we're trying to lead. And by you being in your power, you being in your femininity power while being open and allowing them to be men, you manage a better team that way.
Yeah. And when you allow them to be part of the solution, allow their ideas
Mm-hmm.
to come forward, you can have so much more success. One of the things is I don't go into a room insisting that I'm the smartest person in the room
Mm-hmm.
and that I need to know it all. I prefer to actually surround myself with great people, and my job to be the connector, to be that person who helps them achieve more.
Mm-hmm.
And when they achieve more, we all achieve more. That process of running that team of 1,000 men, we saved $10 million
Wow.
by being open, by me choosing not to be the smartest person in the room, even though I was ultimately in charge, and by elevating the knowledge and skill set within them and showing them that when they work together from that perspective and doing it from my feminine creativity, my ability to engage them and listen, really, really helped that whole part of that organization
Mm-hmm.
succeed. And I have worked with young female engineers who I'm now kind of trying to coach and mentor so that they can start to feel comfortable not having to be the smartest person in the room,
Mm-hmm.
but engaging others to success.
Mm-hmm. Because I probably think that's the way to do it, is being the smartest. But then you're also, it's almost like a hierarchy where you're like up here and they're all down there. I know it all, because then that doesn't ask for a collaborative space. Like when you're doing the way you're doing it, we're part of a team. We're in this together. I need you just like you need me. Like it's not all me and you're my, like, you're not my serfs or my, subservient to me. We're in this together. And that creates collaboration.
Yeah, and it's really, really important, right? And the way you get to that is by having good self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
When we as women build our self-esteem, then we are open to leveling the playing field, I guess, in that sense. And people will respect and work for you better.
Mm-hmm.
Men will, women will. And once I changed back to being more of this fun, flirty, friendly, team building type woman, I actually was able to receive a job offer where I could write my paycheck.
Wow.
They were like, here you go. You tell us what you want. We need this within our corporation. Now, I did realize that that was the trigger to me to go, just a second, I need to be teaching this to other women, not just working within one corporation, doing this as to help them succeed. And so that's kind of what caused me to transition into using coaching as that technique.
Mm-hmm. And there's people are going to take it's also like you were saying, it's about having confidence in yourself and confidence in your femininity, because a lot of people, we can't be responsible for how someone's going to take us, because some people, like, you're just being fun and flirty because that's who you are as a woman with no intention behind it,
Mhm.
except being open, trying to have this open creative conversation and to build them up naturally, not wanting something out of it. But then sometimes people are going to take it the wrong way. I'm sure you got taken the wrong way sometimes, but we have to realize that that is not the intention and they're seeing it from their own filters. How do you correct it sometimes? Because some people probably think you're coming at it the wrong way. How do you correct a
How
situation?
do I correct it?
Like,
So
yeah.
one of the things that I do is really try and understand where I think that person's level of self-esteem is and where the
Hmm.
messaging is. And
Hmm.
so for me, one of my big goals is to actually work with corporate leadership teams to really, really help them develop this understanding. Because if the leaders in the corporations don't understand it, they can't create that space for the people below them.
Hmm.
And so, depending on who you've worked for, depending on what messaging you've received from your parents, from your society, we all have these different kind of blocks and limitations within us. And so, for me, I've also learned that I have no problem apologizing. Like, if I've somehow done something that's offended somebody, I have no problem apologizing and going to them and having a clear discussion about that to make sure that we clear the air, or just make sure that both of us come out of it feeling valued.
Mm-hmm.
I think the things like the Me Too movement have really great importance because there is this area of hierarchy where there's some narcissism and men have been given that privilege to behave badly because of their position. And so for me, though, I could come from the feminist standpoint where I come from the victim and play the feminist card, or I can choose to come from what I call the feminine standpoint. And that is helping boost the self-esteem, helping teaching women how to respect themselves. Because as soon as women start to respect themselves, and as soon as women truly start to support themselves from that natural, from that positive energy, using both their masculine and feminine energies, they will perform better. And then they're able to set the respect and expectations of the people around you. But if you stay stuck, if we as women stay stuck in just the feminist, in that victim mode, we will not be able to educate the men we work with. And we need to be strong. We need to boost our self-esteem. We need to fall in love with ourselves as women and be able to start to rewire those messaging that we've been told since we were little girls. And the boys have been told since they were little boys, right? Boys are told, don't cry. Girls are like, okay, don't be loud. Don't be bossy, right? Like we both get different messages, and we need to realize that we've both received messaging. And unless we as women start to understand what the messaging is that we want, we need to make the change within ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the Me Too movement and the whole feminist movement. Like you said, there's been a lot of programming that's happened. While like there's been a lot of great things that happened because of it, it's also set us backwards a lot as far as how we relate to each other. And it's like you against me, or like, there's almost is like there's this wall built where we're not communicating correctly because the women are doing everything. They've got the masculine role, and being receptive and knowing who you are and allowing that space is inviting men to be in their masculine and to be men. So it's like being in that open, receptive state and having that synergy. We've both got masculine, they've got feminine, embracing all aspects of ourselves. And that's the difference between, we hear things about feminist and feminine. How do you define one from the other? Like, what is the big difference in it? I mean, I have an idea what it is, but I'd love to hear it from you.
So for me, feminists come often from a series of victim language, and so they're trying to do it by fighting the battle. Where feminine comes from a source of what's natural within our bodies and in our abilities. So women are the creators of all life. We create life. So creativity is a natural feminine trait. Every man will tell you that women have better intuition than men do, but we don't trust it enough. So when we start to actually connect with our intuition, we are able to actually think broader, be more open. Women have who are in their feminine energy will be in more flow. And so they're able to actually achieve more and do more from that perspective. And so the languaging is more about positivity, about surrender, about nurturing, as opposed to being combative. And so for me, it's helping women get into that space of trusting their intuition, creating the life or whatever it is they're trying to create, and nurturing it and creating such a beautiful cooperation and synergy among others.
And what would you say are the best ways for women to get in touch with their intuition and to begin trusting it?
So I would say one of the best ways is actually journaling. Journaling is really, really a good process to just take time to just write your thoughts out. What is it that you want? What is it that you believe? Connect with your values, the things that you think are important. And if you're a mother, like, how would you like your children to be treated? How would you like your sons to treat other women? How would you like your daughters to be able to rise up and be able to have their voice? And so I really do think journaling is a really, really great technique, and I highly recommend handwriting it out versus typing it on a computer. Grab yourself a glass of wine or a cup of tea, whatever makes you happiest, and just sit there and relax and journal. So that's kind of one of the techniques. I think one of the others is breathing. So breathing is so huge to our body. And when we learn to do things like take box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, just that process of breathing, learning to control your breathing, allows you to actually engage your parasympathetic nervous system, relaxes your body, and allows you to start slowing your mind down and go, how is my mind connecting with my body? How am I feeling? What thoughts are coming up for me? And I think one of the easiest things that I have available for everybody for free is this 60 seconds to boost your self-esteem. And this is a 5 video series. Each video is about 10 to 12 minutes long. But what it does is it teaches you a 60-second practice. And at the end, that 60-second practice is like a great little thing to do, say, in the morning when you get up, to set yourself in a good state for success that day. Maybe you're going into a difficult conversation meeting, or maybe you're just sitting at the stoplight and your kids are yelling in the background and you just are like, okay, I need to move from this negative energy to this positive energy. And so this little technique that I put together really just teaches women how to connect with their mind and body and start to rechange the language that they may be thinking at that time.
60 seconds, just bringing you back in touch with yourself. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to put that in the show notes. I know you gave me a bunch of links, so that'll be one of them for sure. Yeah, it's just really, coming back. I always talk about women slowing down, like, getting in touch with nature, slowing down, just even the way you talk, just slow down, touch something, come into the present moment to bring you back to yourself. And then, like you saying, journaling, you're learning about it. And you were saying in the beginning, just getting to know yourself, knowing who you are. And by journaling, you're going to know that. And by doing something like that, you're going to be able to trust yourself because you know yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, another little technique as you talk about slowing down and getting into the present moment, and I have this on Instagram, is I'm also a certified sommelier. And one of the great things about training
Oh,
as a
wine.
sommelier,
That's why you mentioned wine.
that's
Every
why
2 weeks, I'm like, Ann Arbor, I lived there 28 years. I never went wine tasting.
yes, I love
Love
wine.
it. Mm-hmm.
But when you train in something like being a sommelier, you have to get in touch with all of your senses. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to get in touch with your sight, with your nose and your smell of the wine, right? With the taste of the wine, with the feel of the wine, and then just allow your body to
Mm-hmm.
kind of connect. And so one of the things that I also recommend is, and you can do this with a cup of tea, you could do this with a latte if you want, but it's just take that time and look at it, feel the warmth, feel the coolness, whatever it is, just smell all of the nose and the notes in. When you sip it in your mouth, just pay attention. How does it feel in your mouth? What tastes are coming up for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great way just to slow down with a glass of wine
Mm-hmm.
or a beer if you prefer to be a beer drinker, or a cup of tea, and just smell, feel it in your mouth, taste it, really just experience it. And you can do it with food. It's just a wonderful way to come into the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Because you're getting out of the mind and into all your senses. And that's what being feminine is all about. There's this coffee, I did it this morning. There's this coffee I get. It's from actually a Vietnamese coffee that I get delivered to me. And I open it up and I just smell it every time. I just breathe it in because it's got this beautiful chocolate coffee aroma, and then I make it. But it's just enjoying, appreciating, being right there in that moment, taste, touch, smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our minds are so blah, 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 blah. I know mine has been, I've gotten off the practice a little bit, especially with everything that's going on in the world, and just, slowing down and taking our time and all these things that you're talking about. I think it's so good. I'm going to have to start journaling again and getting in touch with ourselves. So that can help you be more in touch with your intuition and thus connect with your femininity and become more successful. Now, I hear, going back to the workplace, I hear a lot of times women that are in roles in the workplace that they get criticized a lot of time for being too emotional. right? You
Mm.
hear that a lot. You're so emotional, or they'll be disregarded because they're being so emotional. I even had someone tell me she got fired because she cried twice. They're like, if you cry one more time, you're fired. And she did, and they fired her. So, because they're like
Yes.
Italian
Yes.
company or something that doesn't tolerate that. So what, I don't want to come off as, because it's implied as weak or too emotional, and men don't know how to handle that.
Right. Right. So I think it's a matter of trying to understand why you're being emotional in the situation. So I believe that I have a few beliefs in the corporate world. One is that our employees are our greatest asset. So understanding them and connecting with them. The challenge when you become emotional is you need to look at it. Is it a self-esteem issue, or is it truly something that's tragic that's happening? And also take a look as women about your cycle and where are you within
Mm.
your cycle. Is there certain times of the month where you just shouldn't go have that battle because you're just going to
Take a
be
pause,
emotional?
take a pause.
Take a pause, walk away, because you're going to be emotionally more challenging. But if you look at kind of two ends of the spectrum, I had I want to say it was about a year ago, where I had 3 employees seem to have deaths within their family, all within days of each other. And I had 2 other employees who had significant tragic health type things. And I was just like, if one more person comes into my office and tells me that somebody has died in their family, I was just like, okay, I'm emotional. And I think that is quite a very acceptable space of emotion. But when somebody is giving us feedback that we may not like because of maybe our self-esteem, and we cry quite a bit, we need to take a look at what is actually going on. Is it because this person has really nastily attacked you? Or is it because you internally are like, there's something not going that I'm personally reacting to, and I'm thinking this that's causing you to cry, and that we need to work on your self-esteem so that you can be within the workplace. I do believe that there is certain philosophies in male-dominated industries where the men are actually play more of what I would call the wounded masculine. So that controlling, they don't allow their armor to break. And so they don't like anybody else around them allowing their armor to break. And so one of the things that this is why I want to work with corporate leadership teams, because when you can get corporate leadership teams and corporate and men in corporations to open up and to relax more and to allow their flaws to show, then it will be more acceptable for people to realize that business is personal and that people show up to work wanting to do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do take it personally. But it's trying to figure out what is causing you to cry in the moment.
Mm.
And are we crying because we are struggling with our own self-esteem? And what I do recommend is if a woman cries so easily at the drop of a hat with any form of criticism or feedback, then it's kind of like, we need to take a look at what's going on with you and help boost your self-esteem, help you gain a little bit more of that resilience. But if it's a case where, the woman's had like things dumped on her from so many different spots, then it's kind of like, okay, that seems to be that's a more reasonable cause for you to finally cry and say, I'm letting it down. The other thing with women, because we're the caregivers and because of home and everything else, it's like, is there certain things also going on in your family life that's making it really difficult? And what do we need to do to help you in your workplace to be able to, maybe you need to give something up because you're trying to do too much, right? You're trying to perform too much. You're not taking time just to relax. And so different women will cry for different reasons. And it's a matter of kind of figuring out where on the spectrum are we from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. So it comes right back to knowing yourself and
Yes.
knowing who you are, knowing where, and holding your own space unapologetically, and getting in tune with your emotions and becoming present. And, I've noticed for myself personally, someone used to say one bad thing about me and I'd crumble. And now it's kind of like, I don't give a, not coming from a hard standpoint, but I don't give a F what you think, because I know who I am, and I'm honestly like, coming across flirty, like you think I'm being flirty, but it's flirty fun. There's no intention behind it. So it's standing in that knowing who I am. I'm just trying to make a good environment. There's no agenda or anything from it. So it's coming to a place of knowing who you are, knowing where you stand. And, I think it's awesome that you're going into the corporate world to help train both men and women, because this is training men to understand women and women are understanding men. And maybe it's helping men to become more vulnerable and not coming from that wounded masculine. So I think
Right.
what you're doing is so important in the world, because we are coming back into a feminine society. What is a feminine rising? And men need to be able to hold the space for women to be in their femininity and to lead from
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So I know that you do, you have your own coaching program and you're
Mhm.
doing it in the corporate world. Do you do it individually as well? And I know I love this that you do the rapid transformational therapy. It's kind of like a hypnosis, right?
Yes. So I do most of my work privately, one-on-one. But my goal in 2021 is really, I'm starting to reach out to HR managers and talk about how can I come into corporations and do some free speaking for them to just get this concept going, with the intention to help coach teams of leadership. But I do a lot of my work one-on-one, and I do it using a technique as well called rapid transformational therapy. So I'm a certified hypnosis and a certified rapid transformational therapy practitioner, which means the purpose of doing that is I can help women overcome blocks
Mm-hmm.
of what is holding them back within 90 minutes. And then what we do is apply coaching after that, especially in the workplace, to help kind of balance their workload and fill their cup so that we can boost their self-esteem and regain those skills. But RTT is this really cool technique of hypnosis that allows people to get out of their conscious mind, allows their subconscious mind to bubble up with kind of what are those blocks. And it's amazing what people have experienced as those blocks. And they can be as simple as being teased on the playground for the color of your hair. And so once I help women overcome that block, then in the hypnotic state, I can actually do some mental rehearsal by creating this incredible image and vision of what their future would be like. And the cool thing about our brain is it doesn't know the difference between what you're telling it and what it is thinking to be true. So in the hypnotic state, when you are rehearsing this mindset, your brain and body think that that's exactly what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with my clients to create this incredible image, which could be overcoming procrastination, could be their ability to speak in a board meeting, where I have them in that perspective, picture themselves sitting there calmly giving their presentation. And because we had talked about crying, it could be receiving feedback without feeling that negative sensation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I create this image that they listen to in a hypnotic recording for 21 days just to rewire their brain. And then the next time they go into a boardroom, it is like they've been there, done it 21 times, and their body and mind is like, oh, this is just natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a cool technique.
I think that's really cool. And I think it's something I told you just before we started recording this, that I'm going to be calling you. I'm going to call her. You know what? I've been single for 6 years. I have a vision of what I want in my life, and I'm going to have her, Nancy, work with me, and then I'll report back, because who knows, maybe a couple podcasts down the road, I've got my man by my side. I think it's
Yeah.
about time. I think it's about time right now, Give me that beautiful man. So how can people find you? I know I'm going to put a bunch of links in the show notes. So if you could just give me a couple of, your social or your website.
Yeah, so I can be found at nancymichiellicoaching.com, and on there is also the link to the freebie. I also have Instagram at Nancy Michielli, and on Facebook you can follow me at Nancy Michielli Coaching. And yeah, I'd love to hear people interact and just comment away and give me some ideas and things of what you want to hear and know more. And I'm going to be re-engaging my podcast called Love to Be Me, which is
Mm,
available on iTunes and Spotify and all of those other places. And
yeah.
it's
Oh,
usually a 20-minute one, so it's nice and short. And
mm-hmm.
for people to listen to.
Great, great. And you have a 60-minute program, right? I
It's
thought I saw
60 seconds. So
60
it's
seconds.
about
That's the 60-second one.
Yeah, 60 seconds to boost your self-esteem
Mm-hmm.
is the free program. It is broken up into five or six 10-minute little videos that teach you the technique.
Okay, great. Great. And so I always ask my guests at the end, I keep moving away from my microphone. Sorry if I'm in and out. So at the end, so, it's the Awakened Heart podcast. And since we're talking about being a feminine woman in the workplace, what would you say an awakened heart is in the workplace?
An awakened heart is when you are in tune with all of the team of people that you work with. Because when your heart beats calmly, you actually cause the vibration of your heart to cause the other people in your area to beat. So the more you can actually awaken your heart, open your heart, and choose to get it beating at a constant, slow, relaxed pace, you can actually physically cause that to happen within the other people in the room that you are with.
I love that. I love that because it's coherence, because a heart has such a larger magnetic field. And if you're connecting with others' hearts, there's a coherence that happens. There's a heart-brain coherence. There's a coherence in the room that is actually measurable. I don't know if you follow any Joe Dispenza. He works with heart.
I've taken a full week-long retreat with him.
I want to go. How is it?
Oh, it's amazing. Like it is absolutely
gosh.
phenomenal. Probably the best thing. I would highly recommend everybody.
He's been sold out, especially with the COVID, and he had to cancel a lot of his programs. I think he restarted again in Florida. He had one in November, but it was sold out. But I would love to, because I read Becoming Supernatural and my whole life changed. And I've done his weekend one. I did the program that's a prerequisite, but I really want to go to that because it's just so incredible. He's incredible.
It is really incredible. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll be sure to put all your information in the show notes. Please reach out to her. This is something we all need, not just in the workplace, but ourselves in our lives, and femininity, masculinity, and owning both aspects of ourselves. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been amazing.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenedheartpodcast.com.